Uncle Howdy attacks Bobby Lashley last night on SmackDown amid this Bray Wyatt's WrestleMania feud. Uncle Howdy is also set for Monday night's edition of Raw on the USA Network. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns come face-to-face for the first time ahead of their WrestleMania 39 undisputed WWE Universal Championship main event. Ronda Rousey suffers an injury, which causes a match to change last night on SmackDown. We've got details on that. Dominic Mysterio, WWE, reportedly gaining more and more faith in the second-generation superstar. Therefore, there's big plans for him on the road to WrestleMania. An Intercontinental Championship qualifying match has been announced for SmackDown next week. Seth Rollins continues to talk smack about Logan Paul. Dragon Lee is expected to make his WWE debut on NXT next week. Another sign that Naomi may no longer be with World Wrestling Entertainment. John Jones talks about possibly fighting Brock Lesnar in the UFC, and an NXT Tag Team is reportedly set to be split up. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment, especially after last night's edition of Friday Night SmackDown on Fox. So let's start off talking about the mysterious and wonderful world that is Bray Wyatt. Well, last night on SmackDown, WWE Monday Night Raw superstar Bobby Lashley made a surprise appearance to call out none other than Bray Wyatt. However, he definitely didn't get Bray Wyatt, but was instead met by Uncle Howdy, who mixed it up in the ring for the first time on television. Running the ropes and even taking a bump in full Uncle Howdy regalia, the attire held up as Bobby Lashley and Uncle Howdy came to blows. However, after Lashley was primed to hit a spear on a weakened and downed Howdy, he was saved by the arena lights. It was then when the lights went out in the arena, and when they came back on, Uncle Howdy was gone, with Michael Cole on commentary noting that, quote, Uncle Howdy escaped. With the presumed WrestleMania 39 battle coming up, will Bobby Lashley be having a match with Bray Wyatt, Uncle Howdy, or perhaps both? We'll have to stay tuned on the road to WrestleMania and see indeed what happens. But this feud, of course, Bobby Lashley being on Monday Night Raw, Bray Wyatt being on Friday Night SmackDown, it looks like it's set to cross over to both brands, while the upcoming edition of Monday Night Raw may be set to feature John Cena live in Boston, Massachusetts. There may be another surprise in the house as well. As noted on the Wrestling Observer Daily Update by Dave Meltzer, there will be a special someone in Boston this Monday, and not just John Cena. Uncle Howdy will be at Monday Night Raw on Monday, March 6. Meltzer referred to Howdy as his formerly known WWE name, however, so anyone who needs to see to believe can check out the update this coming Monday night on Raw. Again, it's assumed, and it's not been confirmed, but it's assumed Uncle Howdy is Bo Dallas. Bo Dallas has been at several Monday Night Raws and SmackDowns recently, the same shows that Uncle Howdy has been at, but we'll have to see if there's any confirmation. Nevertheless, certainly it's interesting as we get closer and closer to presumably Bray Wyatt facing off against Bobby Lashley at the Showcase of the Immortals. Now, SmackDown last night, one of the biggest things going into the show, in fact, it kicked off the show, was Cody Rhodes going face-to-face with WWE Undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns for the first time since Rhodes won the men's 2023 Royal Rumble match on the road to their WrestleMania main event. And last night on SmackDown, Undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes met face-to-face for the first time. Now, Rhodes did a big AEW/All-In reference, which we'll talk about in just a second. He spoke about what he's done over the last 7 years, including getting 10,000 people for his indie show. Reigns mocked Rhodes for never headlining WrestleMania or winning a major WWE title. Reigns said how he's been groomed by how his own father and Cody's father, Dusty Rhodes, have played an important part in his career. Reigns said that Dusty said nothing about his son Cody. Quote, he never said anything about you, Reigns said. Reigns says he misses Dusty, and while he's not here anymore, if there's anything Dusty didn't teach Cody, Roman will do it. Cody says that he has to exist, and the only way he can exist is by beating Roman at WrestleMania. There was no physicality, and the segment, in fact, ended with both men shaking hands, a respectful beginning to this feud that one would think will continue to get personal as the weeks go on as we get closer to WrestleMania. But what's quite interesting is that Cody Rhodes, in this face-off, he wasn't afraid to address his history. Cody Rhodes informed Roman Reigns that when people tell him he cannot do things, he has a way of making them become a reality. For instance, while it might seem impossible for him to come back after Stardust, and that there's, quote, no way 10,000 people will pay to see me in my buddy's little indie show, While Cody has certainly referenced his time in AEW in the past, it was in this reference that the success from promoting All In alongside Nick and Matt Jackson was made to sound like an accolade. All In, of course, was an independent. They say independent. It was heavily promoted by Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, but an independent event nevertheless put on in Chicago in 2018. The event was a landmark achievement for being the first professional wrestling event in the United States to sell 10,000 tickets since 1993 that was not put on by either WWE or WCW. All In served as a prequel of what would later become known as All Elite Wrestling. However, it was at the time affiliated with Ring of Honor, as AEW didn't exist yet. Actually, they owned the rights to All In, which of course is now owned by Tony Khan as well. Now, probably unrelatedly, remember when WWE trademarked the term all heart, all in around the same time as a lot of other Cody-centric sounding phrases? Maybe, just maybe, we're going to hear that phrase be referenced on WWE television moving forward. Now, the Young Bucks, as mentioned, they're a big part of All In, and they've commented on Cody Rhodes referencing All In on SmackDown. As previously reported, Cody Rhodes had this face-to-face confrontation with Reigns on last night's edition of the Blue Brand on Fox. Aside from both men talking about their relationship with Cody's father, Dusty Rhodes, the former AEW EVP, made reference to how the goalpost has always been moved for him. After bringing up he will never be anything more than Randy Orton's protege, Cody Rhodes said there's no way that 10,000 people will pay to see me and my buddy's little indie show. Of course, that was a reference to All In. Taken to their Twitter bio, which is where they usually make their comments on various topics, the Young Bucks simply wrote, quote, All In. Now, this wasn't the first time that Rhodes has made a reference to his former Elite's brethren. After winning the 2023 Men's Royal Rumble match, Cody made the Too Sweet and gun symbols known for the Bullet Club and Kenny Omega respectively. It was then subsequently, I guess, pushed back to Cody Rhodes via the Young Bucks Twitter bio as well. So, again, not the first time they've had communication via the WWE airwaves and then Twitter bios as well. Now, what's going on with Jey Uso as well when it comes to Roman Reigns? Well, Jey Uso walked away from his family during the final moments of the Royal Rumble Premium Live event in January. Since then, Jey has barely uttered a word and continues to walk alone, be it playing spectator from the crowd during a heated showdown between Jimmy Uso and Sami Zayn, or sticking to his guns and refusing to strike Zayn despite orders from Roman Reigns. On this week's edition of SmackDown, Jey was once again absent from the Bloodline's various backstage segments, drawing the ire of Reigns, who admitted that his patience was being put to the test by Jey's prolonged absence. Reigns made it clear that if Jimmy fails to talk sense to Jey, he'd face the unfortunate consequences of his twin brother's actions. If Jey's not back in the Bloodline in 1 week, I'm not going to blame Sami, Reigns told Paul Heyman in a backstage segment. I'm going to blame Jimmy. Reigns' ominous words triggered a reaction of shock from Heyman, who previously warned Jimmy that he'd asked Solo Sikoa to take care of the Jey problem if Jimmy fails to do so. Later in the night, the cracks within the Bloodline were once again visible following Sikoa's victory over Zayn. After the match, Solo placed a chair around Zayn's neck as he prepared to take out the former honorary Uso with his vicious running hip attack. However, Jimmy made a timely save, suggesting he'd like the honor of taking out Zayn. The distraction allowed Zayn to flip the chair back into Sikoa, strike Jimmy with a haluva kick and escape the ring. Thereafter, an irate Jimmy and Solo stood in the ring as Zayn jumped the barricade and left the arena. The show went off the air with a displeased Reigns looking on from his locker room. So in 1 week time, Jey's got to be back in the Bloodline. Otherwise, Jimmy's going to have very, very, very serious consequences. Now, continuing to talk about Roman Reigns and WrestleMania, there was all of this discussion, wasn't there, about The Rock. Is The Rock going to be at WrestleMania? Is The Rock going to have that match with Roman Reigns? Prior to Cody Rhodes and Reigns being announced, there was a feeling that The Rock versus Roman Reigns could happen. And despite several conflicting reports, this year's WrestleMania will not involve the family dream match between undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns and Dwayne The Rock Johnson. The match that's never happened but continues to come up every year around WrestleMania season hasn't had much traction, according to WWE's Paul Heyman. In an interview with a Sports Illustrated Media podcast, he said he never spoke to Johnson about the match despite the constant rumors. Heyman spoke to Johnson's busy schedule as a hurdle, mentioning that it would be difficult for him to find the time to get back into ring shape, and with the launch of the XFL, his promotional schedule and other projects. The special counsel to Reigns said although Johnson might be able to run a marathon right now, the cardio it takes to perform in ring and being in the ring shape are two completely different things. Heyman said it requires a specific level of conditioning that's exclusive to the sports entertainment world. Empathetically, stating that he doesn't see how Johnson would have had the time with these projects at this particular moment on his plate. As far as what the timeline would look like for training to come back in the ring, Heyman believed Johnson would need 6 to 10 weeks and then he'd be good for the rest of the summer because of the muscle memory he's built up during his Hall of Fame level career. Previous reports suggest WWE had known for some time about Johnson not being able to wrestle on the grandest stage of them all in April, shifting gears to Cody Rhodes for the spot against Reigns at the biggest event of the year. Despite the concerns about a lack of training, Heyman believes Johnson could have tried to make things work given his high level of knowledge between the ropes, but doesn't believe the fans would have paid to see something that underperformed. Quote, "I bet you, just based on his knowledge of the ring, his supreme psychology which made him such a huge star, that people we would have had around us to diagram such a confrontation, and just the fact that Dwayne would push himself beyond his own limits, we could have had a good 15-minute match," Heyman said. "But I don't think anybody would have paid to see the main event of WrestleMania, of a fantasy match, of a dream match between the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns and The Rock himself. I don't think anyone would have wanted to pay to see a 15-minute match. I think people would pay and rightfully expect to see a far longer story to be told in the most exciting A++++++ level fashion. And to that, there was just no way we would have been able to deliver, and I don't think he would ever want to disappoint whatever we end up calling the WWE Universe." So basically, Paul Heyman saying it was never going to happen, to be honest. Now, Ronda Rousey was meant to be wrestling last night on SmackDown, but she didn't. She later appeared wearing a sling. So what's going on? Well, a previously announced SmackDown tag team match was changed after commentary said there was a, quote, backstage brawl before the announced tag team match featuring Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler taking place on SmackDown against Tegan Nox and Natalya. Michael Cole on commentary noted that the match had been changed. In a somewhat odd way to shoot a backstage brawl, there was footage of a camera person running up to a scene of Natalya and Ronda already down and Baszler and Nox still coming to blows. After Ronda Rousey commanded Shayna Baszler to get retribution, noting an arm for an arm in the clip, this was exactly what happened. Shayna Baszler made relatively short work of Tegan Nox after the match, and the match was changed into a singles affair between the two. Now, if you felt that was all kind of sudden and strange, well, it was, but there is an actual reason as to why this match was changed. Now, Wade Keller from PW Torch has revealed that Rousey has, quote, aggravated a prior injury, although it isn't expected to affect her availability for WrestleMania 39 on April 1st and 2nd. It was recently revealed that a change to a planned WrestleMania 39 match between Ronda Rousey and Rhea Ripley for the SmackDown Women's Championship had been changed, with Rousey having an interest in pursuing the Women's Tag Team Championships with Shayna Baszler instead. In the recent edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer revealed that we're going to see several twists and turns in the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship picture moving forward. Of course, we now have new Women's Tag Team Champions in Lita and Becky Lynch, and Trish Stratus is now also back in the women's division in WWE, so we could see those changes happening as soon as Monday night. But Rousey has aggravated a previously known injury. Reportedly, she's going to be fine for WrestleMania, so last night, I guess, was just a precaution. Now, Dominic Mysterio has been one of the most entertaining acts, hasn't he, in WWE recently, and WWE are reportedly very happy with him. But Rey Mysterio, on television anyway, has a Dominic problem, and it didn't get any better last night on SmackDown. Yet while his son bothered him throughout the night and even cost him his main event match against Karrion Kross last week, Rey had an unexpected ally at the beginning of the evening, Legado del Fantasma's Santos Escobar. Now, as it turns out, the reasoning behind it was twofold. Appearing on WWE's Deutschland Die Woche, he made his intentions very clear. "I have no problem doing so," Escobar said when asked how he'd feel about forming a tag team with the legendary luchador. Not only would he help Rey teach his son a little respect, but he also wants him to be entirely focused when he inevitably makes his own challenge. Right now, that's impossible. He's in a very tough situation because he's not getting the respect he deserves at home, Escobar continued. "The more I want to become the leading Lucha Libre superstar in the world, the more I want him to be 100% so I can contend him for that." Escobar suggested that the longer the situation between Rey and Dominic goes on, the further away he gets from that potential challenge. At the moment, Rey is unable to perform at the level that Escobar not only wants but needs, so when that moment eventually comes, he'll be ready. That said, the former NXT Cruiserweight Champion doesn't see that happening before this year's WrestleMania, saying, quote, "We're so close for it," he added, with WrestleMania 39 not even a month away. "I wish I had Rey for the Lucha Libre Empire, but at this moment, I think I should focus myself on getting him ready, getting him 100%, so that's where my energy is right now." Now, switching gears to last night on SmackDown, certainly It was fantastic to see Dominic Mysterio once again just taunting his father, and WWE reportedly has gained more and more faith in Dominic Mysterio, so much that they're slated for double duty throughout WrestleMania season. The report also references a planned singles match between Dominic Mysterio and Rey Mysterio, which continues to build on WWE television, which did, of course, last night on SmackDown 2, ripping up Rey Mysterio's mask, of course, the mask that was gifted to Santos Escobar. While Dominic was visiting SmackDown along with Rhea Ripley, he faced off against Santos Escobar, who vowed to make Dom show some respect in their brawl. However, in the end, it was Dominic who actually came out on top, and not only did he win the match, he made things personal afterwards, taking the mask that Rey Mysterio had gifted to Santos Escobar and ripping it up. Dominic was then met by Rey Mysterio on the ramp. However, after taunting Rey to hit him, he ended up shoving down Rey and leaving him standing tall with his mammy, Rhea Ripley. And again, so it would appear certainly that we're going to see Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania, and he's also going to be involved in the Charlotte Flair Rhea Ripley match as well. Again, the report that I was previously mentioning was from WRKD Wrestling, which said, quote, WWE has gained more and more faith in Dominic Mysterio in recent months and plan on using him on both Raw and SmackDown leading to WrestleMania, where the current plan is to face Rey Mysterio in a singles match. Again, very interesting to see how featured Dominic Mysterio will be on television moving forward for WWE. Now, speaking of next week on SmackDown, we have Intercontinental Championship ramifications. Gunther is still waiting to know who his opponent will be at WrestleMania 39, but he won't have to wait too much longer. Friday night on SmackDown, superstars couldn't wait to throw themselves at the Intercontinental Champion. It started with Drew McIntyre, who was first to call out the Austrian. That drew the ire of Sheamus, but before things progressed too far, out came LA Knight to a huge pop, by the way, followed by Kofi Kingston with Xavier Woods and Karrion Kross. Following a chaotic scuffle, WWE made it official. Next week on SmackDown, there will be a fatal 5-way Intercontinental Championship qualifying match between Kingston, Kross, Knight, Sheamus, and McIntyre. Gunther's last successful title defense came against Madcap Moss on February 17, when Imperium's leader needed just over 10 minutes to retain. Kross has been seeking a WrestleMania moments for the past few weeks, despite coming off a recent loss to Kingston. As for Kross, he's been embroiled in a feud with Rey Mysterio. Notably, those two were previously in a fatal 4-way match that Moss won to get a crack at the Intercontinental title in February. Sheamus famously was in a match of the year candidate against Gunther at Clash at the Castle last September, but fell short. He received a rematch, but also failed in that bid as well. Of course, he's never won the Intercontinental Championship. Meanwhile, Gunther has held the Intercontinental title since he defeated Ricochet on the June 10 episode of SmackDown. Fast forward to the present, he's now held the championship longer than anyone else in the 21st century. And it would appear certainly that the McIntyre and Sheamus tag team are splitting up on the road to WrestleMania all over the Intercontinental Championship. And one match that hasn't been announced for WrestleMania just yet, but is expected to take place, is Seth freaking Rollins versus Logan Paul. And Rollins says if everyone follows the Logan Paul model, the wrestling business is dead. Logan Paul has become a revelation in the wrestling business since debuting at last year's WrestleMania 38 in an in-ring form, making an immediate impact by winning his first 2 matches before facing Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship at Crown Jewel last year. After suffering an injury against Reigns, Paul returned at the Royal Rumble and eliminated Seth Rollins from the men's Royal Rumble match to kickstart a feud with the former WWE champion. The social media star further progressed his rivalry with Rollins by costing him the United States Championship at Elimination Chamber in the men's Elimination Chamber match. Logan and Seth are now set to have a face-to-face confrontation on this coming week's edition of Monday Night Raw. Speaking on the After the Bell podcast with Corey Graves, Rollins was asked about his recent comments calling Paul a tourist in wrestling. When asked if he still believes this to be true, Rollins answered, quote, "Yes and no. There are obvious advantages to having people from outside of our world coming into our world. Logan Paul is not a new phenomenon. We've been doing this in WWE for decades, and we're going to continue to do it for a long time after Logan Paul is gone. There's just a lot to be said about having these types of performers on our show and whatever they may be doing. You look at the Rock and Wrestling Connection all the way back to Cyndi Lauper, the first WrestleMania with Muhammad Ali and Liberace, you had it all. It makes sense. It's a different beast. I feel when you start getting these people in the ring on a semi-regular basis, you look at Lawrence Taylor against Bam Bam Bigelow, perfect way to utilize these celebrities. Lawrence Taylor was an athlete beforehand, one of the greatest linebackers in NFL history, and also a guy who wasn't calling himself a wrestler. He didn't go around getting a big head thinking, I can do this, I'm so good at this is a cakewalk for me. I don't want people going around thinking thinking that's what wrestling is. That's just a paint by numbers. Somebody programs you and you're going to be just fine. Now, you're the biggest star, you're the best thing that's ever happened, and that's what the wrestling business has become. If every single one of us just followed that roadmap, there wouldn't be a wrestling business because nobody would be able to do the damn thing. That's not what it is. It's making the towns, having hundreds and thousands of matches in different cities in front of different sized crowds. It's learning your trade. The idea that you can hop on a camera, film yourself, do some crap on social media to become a star and have some worth in the world. Maybe I'm an old crotchety man, but I don't understand what value you're giving back to the world. Seth continued to explain his belief that Logan Paul coming into the business and getting a WWE contract sets a bad example by saying, quote, "In the Logan Paul situation, I don't understand what long-term value he's going to be able to give back to us. It's one thing if you come in, do your thing and leave, but this dude has a contract with WWE. He's supposed to have a few matches a year. That doesn't make you an ambassador for the business. That's not what wrestling is. I don't want my students, I don't want the next generation coming up and thinking that's how you make it in wrestling. If everybody follows that model, the business is dead." Obviously, take Rollins' comments there with a pinch of salt about that big. But to be honest, he might even be saying his personal beliefs just a little bit in there as well. Dragon Lee, of course, he signed to WWE and he's expected to make his NXT debut next week. Despite the fact that Dragon Lee signed with WWE back in December, he is yet to make his debut for the company, but that might be about to change. That's because the masked wrestler is hoped to be arriving next week, according to the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter. While it isn't guaranteed at this point, it is the expectation, meaning he could be on television as early as the upcoming episode of NXT if everything goes to plan. Lee was originally slated to debut in January, but due to problems securing his visa, he has been unable to enter America. That appears to be over, and a potential feud against Grayson Waller could be the first order of business for the former AAA Lucha Libre star. Lee took to Twitter to send Waller a message after he posted a video of himself in a swimming pool, bragging about the fact Shawn Michaels confirmed he would be part of the Waller effect next week on NXT Roadblock, simply saying, "You talk too much." Waller responded with a gif asking, "Who are you?" to which Lee shared a comment from Waller on Instagram when it was announced he had signed, proving he knew exactly who he was. While Waller's complaints about Michaels have led to some fans believing the Heartbreak Kid could be stepping out of retirement, signs seem to be pointing to Michaels introducing Lee as the man to deal with Waller for him. With the NXT brand currently focused on WrestleMania weekend, where Stand and Deliver will be taking place, could that be the night that indeed Dragon Lee makes his in-ring debut against Grayson Waller? It feels most likely, doesn't it? Now, what's going on with Naomi? Do we have another sign that Naomi is now no longer signed to a WWE contract? Trinity Fatu has now been announced for WrestleCon 2023 amid uncertainty surrounding her in-ring career. It was revealed on Twitter that Naomi will be at the wrestling convention set to take place during WrestleMania 39 week. After sharing a graphic noticeably advertising her under her real name Trinity Fatu rather than her WWE name Naomi, WrestleCon confirmed that Fatu will be at sessions 3 and 4 on April 1st and 2nd. The convention will take place in Los Angeles, meaning that Fatu will be in the city when WWE hosts WrestleMania from SoFi Stadium, also on April 1st and 2nd. The announcement has fueled speculation that Fatu is no longer under a contract with WWE, with some believing that if she was still with WWE, they wouldn't have her making independent appearances during WrestleMania weekend. Of course, she hasn't wrestled since May 2022, when she and Sasha Banks walked out of a Raw taping. Of course, Banks is now the current IWGP Women's Champion with New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom. John Jones returns to the Octagon this weekend, and he wants to fight Brock Lesnar. Former UFC heavyweight champion John Jones has teased a fight with WWE's Brock Lesnar following the Beast's previous MMA run. While Jones and Lesnar were both fighting for UFC at the same time, the two stars never faced off inside the Octagon. Jones has now moved up to the heavyweight division and is slated to battle Cyril Gane for the vacant UFC heavyweight championship at today's UFC 285 event. In an interview with Sporting News Fights, Jones noted he would have loved to have faced Brock Lesnar inside the Octagon. Noting that he'd still be interested in a bout against the Beast, Jones said, quote, "I think fighting Brock Lesnar would have been really cool. You know, Brock isn't the most technical fighter, but he has a massive fan base. He's a lot bigger than me, and it would have been one of those really cool David and Goliath situations. It would have been cool for cross-sport promoting, and I think we both would have done great things for our families and for our team. You know, financially, that would have been massive. Never say never. Brock, if you're out there, Now, Brock, of course, is slated to face Omos at WrestleMania this coming April. There have been rumors about his future, but as far as going back to the UFC, at this point, that does feel unlikely after possible returns have happened and then fallen through. And, of course, the last time he actually fought in the UFC, it didn't go too well. Despite him winning, that got overturned to a no contest because, of course, he failed a drugs test. Finally, an NXT Tag Team is set to be splitting up in the near future. Over the past few weeks, fans of NXT have been seeing teases of dissension between Ivy Nile and Tatum Paxley. The duo formed a partnership in 2022 that saw Nile take Paxley under her wing and started having Tatum train with the Diamond Mine faction. As of late, Isla Dawn and Alba Fire have been driving a wedge between the tag team by alluding to Paxley being the one responsible for the recent attack on Nikita Lyons in the NXT parking lot. In the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer reports that the plan right now is for Ivy Nile and Tatum Paxley to break up. This would likely lead to a feud between the two stars and possibly one of them being responsible for the aforementioned angle with Lyons. It remains to be seen how or when WWE finally pulls the trigger on the end of their partnership. Of course, if we get any more details, we'll let you know. But there you go, guys. This is the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. Remember, you can join the WN365 roster page by clicking that join button. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.